This is AV SuperFriends On Topic, a 30-minute monthly roundtable focused on a single topic. This discussion will be opinionated, to the point, and saturated with our well-known blend of painfully won expertise and deeply ingrained immaturity. For June 2021, it's the AV SuperFriends On Topic. Welcome back, everybody. Time for another Friday afternoon podcast adventure with the AV SuperFriends. We have the whole crew here for you today. My name is Chris Dechter. I'm joined by Mark, Larry, Jamie, Justin, Rachel, and a very, very special guest, Mandy Beckner, President and Chief Operating Officer of the rAVe Agency. Welcome, Mandy.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
So we asked Mandy to join us because, well, we all know her, and she's a good friend and has all sorts of great insights to the industry. But today's topic is the return of trade shows and events. Sort of, I guess, maybe.
Whatever that means.
So with that in mind, before we get to that kind of open discussion, there's a couple of news stories that have come out in the last few weeks since we've last talked. So this first one, for those of you actually looking at the links in here, but this first one is from AV Network, and ISE has thrown in the towel on the Amsterdam and Munich events due to local COVID and travel restrictions and things. But they're still charging ahead with the other events in, where are they now? Barcelona and London, I think. So They're going to do virtual events at all of them, but some of them are now, or some are still going to be in person, but not all in person. I think we were all kind of waiting for ISE to be kind of the harbinger of how things were going to go, and I guess this is a half-hearted maybe attempt, but I don't know. What do you think? Is
You're
this...
getting both. They're playing both sides of it. If you bet on it going away, you lost that one, and if you bet on it being full, you lost that one too. So I
play both sides, so I always come out on top.
Yeah, there you go. You bet on green.
So what does this mean for future events? Are we gonna make it, or do we need to kind of keep our fingers crossed and hedge our bets?
I don't think we can really treat ISE as a bellwether for the whole industry, because the nature of ISE was always as a truly international event, which is part of what made that event so cool. But it's also part of what makes it so vulnerable to this particular crisis, because they have to deal with not just what's happening locally, but what's happening throughout the continent, throughout the globe. And I think they're also, maybe, this is just speculating at this point, but maybe just a little bit gun shy, because they were right at the beginning. They went forward with ISE right at the very beginning of the crisis in 2020. And for them to come back without taking every imaginable precaution, I think would be insane. So being really, really sensitive to the situation on the ground right now, I think, is their only move. But things are really different in the United States than they are.
Things are changing so fast right now, too. And then they had to make decisions, months ago. So they only could go on the data they had at that moment to make those decisions. And I'm sure they had a window where they had to make a call. And it's like, well, think back how different the world was 3 months ago.
And the fact that they had to spread it over 4 different countries, you have 4 different governing bodies around those and 4 different epicenters of the disease, or like just the whole atmosphere in those areas. It would be hard for all 4 of them to have been successful without the entire planet being successful at that point.
That's true.
So I think it is kind of interesting to see, though, that they're charging ahead with 2 of them, and the other 2 will just be digital only, and we'll see how that goes. I guess one maybe silver lining to that cloud, if you can call it that. Them being digital only means those of us over here in the U.S. can sign up and kind of attend virtually and see what's going on there. Granted, there are some people here in the U.S. who attend ISE because they apparently have a whole bunch of extra marketing money. I don't know, but it ain't happening for most of us anyway.
I haven't entirely ruled out going to it yet. I know that sounds crazy. We're just a few days away, but in our hearts, we're still hoping to send 2, maybe 3 people. But travel regulations right now are what's holding us back. But it'd be wonderful to go and cover Barcelona. We have a lot of great partners to work with, but we want to go too and cover the new products and see the manufacturers that are there, and give coverage to anyone who's there to exhibit. So I hope we get to go. It would be fantastic. We've already done one trade show just a week ago, 2 weeks ago. So it would be wonderful to do another one and just keep it going. We're ready. We want to go, but we have to be able to go safely and
have the will travel. Yeah. We want to go, but will they let us go?
Well, and I think that's kind of what everyone's feeling right now. Is I think everyone is, in one way or another, is kind of like, yeah, I really want to go to these things if I can do it safely. So they're waiting for enough people to kind of take that first step. So kudos to you and your team there at rAVe, Mandy, for kind of leading the way. I think we're all kind of waiting to see how that plays out, because we'd all love to get back to even some of these smaller regional shows. I mean, that we miss all that. So
now we're all still basically hermits. So I'm pretty much dying to know, Mandy, how did it feel to be like back in Las Vegas, back on a trade show floor? What was that like? Or did you not go?
I wasn't in Vegas. I did not go. No, the show that we covered was the tech show. Tech is a TEC. It's a show put on by PSA. Mm-hmm. And it was in Colorado. It was in Denver, Colorado. And I asked the team, I said, just at least for internal purposes, because we want to know what it is like. Take some B-roll, show us around, give us the sense. Man, they did better than that. If you go to ravepubs.com, shameless plug, you'll see that we've covered the tech show and TEC, and you can see the videos we captured there. There's actually a lot of people. It felt really great to see so many buyers and sellers coming together. It was a lot more about people than product, I would say. That was my sense of it, just as a viewer and just talking to internal staff about their experience. And I expect that as we get into what our event's going to be like, that's going to be a common theme. It's about people, not products.
I think that you're exactly right. I am a member of a residential integrators group centered mostly in the UK, because why wouldn't I be? That makes perfect sense for me.
Natural fit.
Called the Smart Homies. It's just a fun group. And they've been kicking around the idea of launching a group, but one of their ground rules, or of launching an event, but one of their ground rules for the event is that, you know, anybody who's in the space could come, manufacturers, integrators, dealers, distributors, buying groups, whoever, but no black box talk.
It's perfect.
Like, it is just a person-to-person event. And I'm not even sure our industry 100% knows how to relate to each other that way, but people are desperate to, because black box talk is all we've had for the past 18 months.
Yeah, we looked at pictures on the internet and look at that one. It has a network port. Oh, that one has 2 network ports. Oh my God, this one has 3 network ports. Wow.
So the other article I wanted to bring up real quick, this one's from techlearning.com, and it's from an educational technologist, works for a school district in somewhere. Don't know, somewhere. It's written by Carl Hooker, and basically he's just talking about, hey, we used to go to a whole bunch of these smaller educational technology trade shows. What are those going to look like in the future? For the last year, we've been doing virtual ones. Are we going to maintain some level of that, or can we return to the way they were 2 years ago? And he's kind of trying to find some positive side of this to say, well, a lot of the shift to a virtual experience has been helpful for a lot of people who weren't otherwise able to go as regularly. You hear this a lot from people who I pick one trade show every 2 or 3 years, and that's the one I go to. So now maybe doing things virtually is going to open that up to a lot more people. And to his credit, he does recognize that a lot of the most important conversations that happen at these trade shows and conferences are the ones outside the sessions, kind of that unconference model. But I just want to bring that up as it's a different take on being a little positive. If trade shows are going to be still different moving forward, and I don't want to 100% agree with what his statement here is, because it almost sounds like he wants to throw in the towel and be like, we'll just go virtual, it's fine. Because in my opinion, not so much, but I don't know if you guys feel the same way or not. I definitely lose something from that personal connection you get there at conferences and trade shows.
I apologize because I'm going to talk a lot today because, this is like the one area where I have more expertise than the five of you.
We're going to let you have the floor.
This will be our only show all year. But I think that's nuts. I met everybody on this call except for Mandy, and like tangentially maybe also Mandy because of trade shows. I think that the interpersonal connections that you forge there's no replacement for it. And there is like that. This is not just my opinion because I worked in trade shows for a really long time and I like them. It is backed up by very real data. Like Microsoft has been observing that people using Teams software and both internally and looking at data across the platform for the past year. And something that they've observed as people have moved to work from home is that there is less interaction among people who are on different teams now than there was a year ago. There is less cross-pollination. People are becoming more siloed. So it's not that people don't have the ability to do their work, to do their tasks remotely. They do. Like there are lots of other studies that show that yes, people are able to be productive from home. They're still like doing lots of work. The jury is out on whether or not that work is better or worse, but the results are in on whether or not that work has grown more or less collaborative. And the answer is that it has grown less. We are making fewer connections with people that we don't already know. Our connections to the people we do already know are deepening, but we are losing the people on the outside of our orbits. And we need trade shows to renew the periphery of our networks so that we can have that strong cross-pollination that leads to innovation. It's essential.
It's kind of like that
soapbox done.
You need that though. Like there's something to be said about bumping into that random person, right? On the show floor. If you literally do not bump into them or hit their elbow or spill whatever on them, you miss that opportunity, right? So you're not getting those points of contact, and that's important. And it seems really similar to me than that classroom conversation, teaching and learning, right? Where it's not binary that way. It's not just the at-home experience, and it's not just the in-classroom experience. It doesn't have to be either or, but to the student experience, like offer them both of those, give them the opportunity to do it. But there's something to be said about sitting in a classroom with other people going through that experience in real time and being able to tap them on the shoulder and have those points of contact. And I think that is a more rich experience versus just living at home behind a screen, right? So.
But Mark, I would add that those opportunities for bumping into people should be designed for. There should be intention around the event design, whether it be a trade show or in any kind of in-person event, so that there's purposeful things happening that are built to happen in the white space of the scheduled event. Mm-hmm. And it's through that intention and that purpose that people can deepen connections. They can have moments of whimsy and fun. Wouldn't that be great? They can make new connections and then just simply deepening or creating new friendships with colleagues. All of those things can happen if designed for. And there are ways to actually design it so that doesn't happen. And merciful heavens, let's avoid that.
To Mandy's point, I wouldn't be on this call if it wasn't for trade shows. AV SuperFriends wouldn't be on or together as a business if it wasn't for trade shows. I probably wouldn't really know these guys if it wasn't for trade shows, right?
Probably. We need you to come in and clean up something at some point. So you came in with a broom and everything and cleaned up. So that's when I met you.
Well, I'm probably the only one who would know everybody from traveling around, but that's
yeah,
just
you know
career.
everybody though. You've worked everywhere. So
you haven't made it Kentucky
advantage.
yet.
Yeah,
you got to work in Kentucky.
I'm one state away, so
that's right.
Watch out.
Come on down. You can take my spot.
All right. Let's put a pin in this conversation and let's take a quick break so Mark's computer gets a chance to breathe. We're going to come back and we're going to keep hammering on this idea of what trade shows are going to be like in the future. So we'll be right back.
As many of you know, the Super Friends have always been better received when we have more input from you. So here's your chance. Send us a note at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com and get involved with the show. We're looking for some topics to discuss, some fellow nerds to talk to, or just general AV awesomeness to brag about. But remember, we'll probably steal your ideas. And I suppose we'd take some criticism, but that wouldn't be very nice. Anyway, drop us a note at mailbag@avsuperfriends.com and find out how quickly we ask you to join this nonsense.
So just before our break there, we were discussing this idea of what kind of a future trade show might be. Are we going to slightly modify that format to kind of accommodate what we've been doing for the last year? Or are we just going to go right back to 2018 and do it the old way because that's really what we want to, almost out of frustration at this point? So
revenge trade shows, is that what you're telling me?
This is a trade show out of spite. We're doing spite trade shows now. There is no streaming. Actually, let's go back to like 2016. Let's turn off the internet,
yeah, no internet
and just be like, no, you're here. Pay attention.
All cameras are not allowed.
Yeah, I love those days of the crummy internet and poor cellular connections and good luck doing anything outside the room sort of thing. But there's an advantage to that, I suppose. So I'm going to throw this question out to the panel at large here, but online events or online only events, I guess, were a necessity in 2020 and 2021. Are those here to stay, or what we're going to see is we're going to see the return to in-person events because of these personal connections and things we were just discussing, but they're all going to have an online or a streaming component? Or how do we see that relationship between the two most common formats we've been dealing with for the last several years? What's that going to look like, and how do we see that working as far as, how well is that going to work? If you have both sides of that in one event.
I think we're going to have the online things. I just hope we find the right use for them, right? I think the way that we've been pushing them out over the last year or so it's been obviously clustered, right? Clustered together. And I think we can do better, especially in our industry, right? We can do better. I think that more thought, more preparation, and for God's sakes, for a bunch of people that care nothing about but things like how we sound, how things look, what kind of camera you have. I mean, that's all we nerd out about. And yet some of our presentations are some of the worst things ever. And this is what we do. But I think there's a big portion of some of, maybe not, there's a lot of trade shows, the getting together and the camaraderie is all there. But I also think there's a lot of the trainings and things that people have found can be given out. And we have all seen now that there are companies that are doing it well. I know I've said it on our show before that of all the things that I took part in, as far as these conferences, these virtual get-togethers, the best one that I attended, besides our own that we presented on, right, because we are awesome, besides that one, we'll rule it out, was the one for my junior in high school for his college meet and greet, what do they call those things? But all the college,
Campus
all
tour.
the colleges were there. It was like the street, right?
College fair, like a job fair, but college fair.
Yeah, college fair.
Yeah.
Mind blanks. Friday afternoon. That was the best one I went to. They had the right tool for the job. They were in and out. They had the address to the general address to the crowd was the right amount of time with the right amount of information. It was kind of like, this is the way these things should be run. It was the only one I attended all year long where I thought it was wonderful, and it wasn't geared to us. So those are the things I wish we'd get better. I would like for them to stick around. I think there is some value in being able to do some of these trainings and some of these discussion groups without waiting for June, without waiting for March, right, whenever the big show time is. But I still think there's a lot of places for that big show. But these little ones, it'd be nice. Just let's up the ante. Let's make it better.
I remember thinking at one point that like this was it. Not that trade shows were going to go away, but that they would all be fully hybrid beasts from now on, and that they would all have to be as accessible remotely as they were in person, and that you would need to find a way to give a parallel experience for anybody who was remote. I don't think that anymore. Not because I don't think it's the right thing to do, even though I know it's a very expensive thing to do, but because it's just not going to happen. CES has made that quite clear. They've already come out and said, hey, we are in person in 2022 in Las Vegas. We're not doing any of that remote shit. We would love for our media partners to do it. We strongly encourage our media partners who are good at this and know what they're doing, and to Jamie's point, know how to provide a professional level experience. We would love for them to do it, but we're not going to do it.
Do we know anyone like that? Do we know anybody that?
No,
Might you?
Well, I think it was.
But I mean, I think that you're going to see that's the direction it's going to go, that you're going to see people who are going to go into this space and professionalize it because people realize that it's not just setting up a Zoom call.
So you're calling it a premium service.
That it takes actual skill. Yeah. That's what I'm calling
an
it.
add-on premium service.
A couple of years ago, I mean, when Mandy and Rachel, you were with your previous location, your previous employer, I mean, you guys made big strides and stressed, learn this craft, learn how to present, learn how to engage, make it better. And we were in person at that time, right? And you were flying people out there and providing that experience. And I think it's needed now for the virtual world.
This is what the rAVe agency does. So the rAVe agency, I think most of the industry think that we're rAVe pubs, and that's primarily what my organization is. That's one of 8 divisions. The rAVe agency has 7 other things that it does creatively, specifically for the audiovisual industry. One of those product sets is called Launch, spelled with a V and instead of a U, a la ancient Romans, because AV, always keep AV together. So the Launch is a platform that was developed for the AV industry by AV nerds, where we've started a platform, we put it out there and said, okay, this isn't good enough. We need to have much better video. Okay, this isn't good enough. Audio needs to sync with the lips. Okay, this isn't good enough. We have to have really great graphics. Background graphics should have motion. There should be lower thirds. All of these things must exist. And instead of going to a platform that just does this for the population at large, we didn't think that was good enough for the AV industry. So we stuck with companies within the AV industry and said, this isn't where it needs to be. What are we going to do about that? And got partners to work on it. And thus the Launch platform continues to iterate and be added. We added, people want to talk to each other. Usually in a platform, you talk, asynchronously or synchronously with text over chat with a large group. In Launch, we insisted that needed to be one-on-one. We are adding ways coming very soon where you can have video chats one-on-one with other fellow attendees who are at this virtual event with you on a platform. Any of you can see it for yourself. But this platform wasn't created because of the pandemic. It was created for hybrid events. It was created because what people know rAVe for, the rAVe pubs, particularly the videos that we capture at every trade show for every product that wants to do a video for free. We do not charge for that. All those videos go up. And what if there was a place where people could come and have connections about the new products that they were seeing? It's a product demo, might be one of the things that you don't need to be in person for. And then chat with a group of allied professionals, birds of a feather style, about the technology, about when you might use something. And that's what we're using our platform for. And the numbers don't lie. Like, this is good business. This is something that's going to stick around. This isn't just a pandemic kind of business. This is real. This is good connection. But it's not those other things that we need to design for in person. So it's great for what it is. We're not trying to make it all the things that we've already covered that we wanted to, make part of the intention of being together.
Now, Mandy, does the rAVe agency find itself in the position of doing media training for the people who are participating in launch events? Like,
yes, we do.
Do you have to coach people about how presenting differently or presenting on camera is different than presenting in person, or how to relate to people on camera? Like, what What are the struggles that you see from those launch presenters? And do you think I think it's going to get more complicated as people are trying to do both at the same time, trying to handle both a remote and a online audience. And I would love to hear your advice.
We didn't see much of a difference in coaching people because we've needed to coach them for their in-person interviews. We have a team of people that we train who go off into the trade show floor who have to give rapid coaching to someone in a booth about how to concisely present and talk about their product and their company, right? So we already had that training. We modified that and added some things for virtual, things like background and lighting and microphones. So all of that, you're right, is true. We had to modify that. Now, as I think forward to how might we design something that tries to meet two audiences at once at InfoComm 2021, both an in-person audience and a distance audience? I don't know that we have a purpose for it, but if we did create one, I would be thinking through what other additional training you have to give as prompts to a presenter, what other tricks and tools you have to include in order to allow that presenter to engage meaningfully, not just to the camera and the people behind at a distance behind it, but also to those around them. And that's an art form that takes practice.
I think we just went through the craziest experiment ever, right? These last 18 months. And it wasn't that we wanted to force everything into that medium. We had to, and people weren't trained. People were not up to speed. And the pendulum swung, right? We had no choice. And now we know, well, that didn't work. We shouldn't have did this type of thing in that medium. We shouldn't have done that type of thing. And I think you now have people who are thinking it's not just, we'll throw a camera in the back of the room and do it surveillance style. That's not going to work. And so it is a design piece now, right? So how do you design for an experience that actually works well for that delivery, right? So it's not just we'll just kind of do this and back in, but it's at the part of the actual experience design. And so I think now that we've been through this, we can identify, well, that's probably not going to be a good candidate. Maybe that content's not going to work. Maybe that wholesale session's not going to be a good fit. But now we kind of know. We know, we've tried it. We've all know what good and bad is. We all sat through them. And so it's going to be interesting to see how creative people get with that information and that data about what worked well or lousy, and see how that actually translates to the show, right? What elements are we going to see that work? We're probably going to see something new, which will be great, but there'll probably be some not so great things as well. But hey, it'll be exciting.
Now, Mandy, you were talking about, like, with your guys' platform in particular, most of it's free, right? Most of it's just out there. I think one of the biggest sticking points a lot of times with this is that when you go to some of these trade shows and these conferences, it costs money, right? And it's all fine and dandy when we're doing these events online and it's free. What do you see, or what do you encourage people? How far do you want them to up their game in order to start for profit, for charging, for reimbursement of just the nominal, the nominal amount of time it takes to plan something like this? Because it only takes a minute or two. I mean, where's that threshold? What's your opinion on that threshold? Where is it? It's not okay to be free anymore, but people are okay with paying for it. Think about Netflix, right? I mean, everybody was fine with it when it was $8, but now it's $9. It's like, whoa, $9? Come on. I mean,
Jamie, I
how
had
about
to
for trade shows?
Netflix is not $9
I said that, but they're still
anymore.
taking my money. So yeah, it's way above $9.
Really?
I'm paying like $15, I think.
Yep.
I think it's up there.
Sorry.
And that is, no, that's part of it though, because we've now established in the zeitgeist that virtual trade shows are free, or that they're supported through a sponsorship model. Do you think that the industry still has appetite to support virtual events going forward?
I think it's any industry. I guess mine is globally. Think about any of these things. We're a bunch of cheapskates, so think about something else too. I mean, but where's that threshold? Is there one? Have you found it? Are you experienced with this? Because we're doing this with classes, right? So in the higher education thing, it's like, when is online education a premium, and when is it just part of the experience? So where do we draw that line? Where can we expect that line to be drawn 18 months from now?
I'm certainly not advising clients on changes to their model for trade shows. That's tends to not be what my clients are asking me to do. However, my opinion is they will continue to be free. And where a business feels that it can offer additional value because of the people attending and with whom you can have meaningful conversation with, that's when they'll start charging. And I think they'll start it at a nominal rate. And if it takes, they'll go up from there based on demand. But I think it's not going to be about, they got this big, great presenter that's coming, or they have a new tool set, or there's this exclusive content. I think it's going to be about who you get to connect with as an audience, as long as they've got really great tools for you allow to use to connect with that audience.
I've seen that with my clients too, Mandy. I have a client, PTZ Optics, that does a whole bunch of virtual events. They do like the church. They do church tech summits. They do the Presence Summit. They do the Tech Geek Summit. They do a bunch of them year round. I can't even keep track. But what their events are always free, and then there is a premium tier, and the premium tier is the same as the free tier in terms of the content. What you get is access to Zoom breakout rooms for networking, where you can connect with the other attendees, connect to the speakers, have moderated conversations. What you pay for is person-to-person connection.
Yeah, it's that traditional like social media kind of marketing tier where you have like your base level free, and then when you get in, as you go down, you have that premium content. It's behind the scenes. It's that opportunity to interact in that moment, right? We think that that's kind of where the premium on-site show is. Is it the sum total of, hey, this is more valuable, and it's not the information, because we know the information can be delivered through the internet for people that are not going to be there. So how do you design around that to create that premium experience on that show floor or wherever it may be? And is that something that you're seeing now? Are people talking about, hey, how do we actually do that?
I'm seeing it from an internal standpoint for how we approach trade shows and create conversation and interest for audiences that are both there and at a distance. And one of the things we're talking about a lot is for the people who are at a distance, does it have to actually be live? Does it have to be timed at the same time? Does that bring additional value? Or as long as it's valuable and interesting and compelling and the analysis is good, or at least interesting and compelling, as long as that exists, can it be on a delay?
See, I got a question. So if a trade show or whatever would deliver a hybrid content solution to a remote audience and local audience, would they give the same amount of RUs to the remote audience as the local audience? Would that be, so it's kind of reversing? Do they see it as an equal experience to reward the participants the same way?
We're going to have to get Adrian Nikkovic's director of certification on the line to answer that one.
It's a different one, yeah.
From what I know, the answer is it depends. I would say that
classic answer.
That they would have exactly the same. Well, no, I can tell you what it depends on though.
Okay, go for it.
In order for you to receive renewal units for something for CTS, because it is an ANSI certified, or it's certified, it's an ANSI accredited certification. You have to be able to prove that like you were there and you learned it. So that's where Mandy's thing about like, does it matter if it's live or not? That's part of it, right? If somebody is consuming a recording, you can't really tell that they were there consuming that recording unless there's like some kind of quiz at the end or some sort of assessment that you've added on in order to give them that renewal unit. If somebody is on a live feed and they're asking questions and you can see metrics of whether or not they were looking at your thing or they had a bunch of windows open, then yeah, you can tell that they were there just as much or to the same extent that you can tell that a person that was in the room.
But that takes a lot of work to figure that out if there's 20 people online, right?
Yeah, so now
Or
you know why
whatever.
you have to pay to renew your CTS. It actually does
exactly.
take work to administer that stuff. But yeah, I mean, it depends on whether or not you can reasonably assess that somebody got something out of the session in the same way.
Well,
I'll tell
I
you
think
this:
that
you come
lead-
to our event, I will track that you were there, and I will give you the RUs for anything that's RU approved, and I'll put your certificate in your profile so you can get it anytime you want.
Well, I think this leads to the very last question. And Mandy, how much worth did you get out of this, and how much are you willing to pay us to do this again? We accept anything higher than $200,000 or $300,000. No, maybe. What do you think the value of the
submit this
Super
for
Friends are
RUs.
after this experience? Yeah,
It cost
you
you.
give me an RU. Nice. All right, Chris. I guess
Please
I'm
don't
taking
answer
RUs.
that. Wait for me to sign off the call. I don't need my feelings to be heard at this point.
Weren't we just
Okay?
talking about negative RUs right before
what
this
this
call?
Yeah, we were.
It's like
Cost you
losing RUs
RUs.
for attending something stupid. Yeah.
Well, we are running long here. I know we pitched this as a 30-minute discussion, and we're over that already. So I think as much as we'd love to continue discussing this and prognosticating, I think we are going to have to call it. So again, super big thanks to Mandy Beckner from the rAVe agency for joining us. Mandy, anything else you want to plug that rAVe has upcoming, all sorts of events and things or odds and ends? This will be going out in early June. So anything after that?
Well, then, great. We will see you at all of the trade shows that you are attending in this industry. We will be there. Come see us.
Fantastic. I will say that is my favorite question to ask from multiple different marketing agencies who ask, are you attending in-person events this year? And the answer, and they always say, like, are you sure about some of these? Yes, 100%. I'm going. I will fight little children and shove old ladies out of the way to get there. Because that's how much that I value that. So hopefully that we see the industry as a whole kind of return to that. So
Thank you all for having me. This was really fun.
Thanks for being here.
Yep. Thanks for
Yay.
coming.
and we'll be back next month. Thanks for putting up with yet another episode of AV SuperFriends On Topic. You can contact us with questions, topic ideas, or general complaints at avsuperfriends.com.
Nice work, everyone. Sharp broadcast. Really good. Everyone on the floor as well. Really a lot of hustle. I liked it.
The opinions expressed by the AV SuperFriends are solely those of the individuals and do not represent their respective institutions, organizations, companies, or clients.